Welcome to the first meetup for the Agile Coaching Network. This meetup is really for practitioners by practitioners. So the hope is that we can give back to the community, talking about the things that we're dealing with in our daily work. We have two talks today. Chris and Rich will kick off with, is it fair to say, a different take on the Agile Manifesto? A bit of a revisit.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Let's go with that. Okay. And then Stefan will follow up talking about reteaming, Uber reteaming, what happens when things start getting a bit chaotic, a bit hectic. As I mentioned, we are recording this. It will go up on YouTube at some point. George, who's in the top left of my screen, will do his magic to turn it into something truly amazing. Not that it won't be, as it is. So runtime, goodness, how many people are coming in late? Runtime is about 30 minutes for the first talk, 10 minutes of Q&A. So if you have a question, please put it into the chat. Okay, I will, and for those that know me will know how ridiculous the statement is for me to do logistics, but I will try and keep up with the questions. I've got a spreadsheet and everything to try and pretend like I know what I'm doing. We'll ask the speakers the questions, 10-minute time box. Once that's done, we'll switch over to Stefan and we'll hear about reteaming. Same thing, if you've got questions, please pop them in the chat. Okay, I will do my best to keep up and we'll pose them to Stefan at the end. I guess with that, it's worth getting started. They're still coming in, so they missed my amazing intro. It's their own fault.
I'll catch on YouTube later.
Yeah.
Okay, so first up we have Chris and Rich talking about, let me get this one. Welcome to the Agile Manifesto. Okay, so Chris and Rich, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. So yeah, we've changed it slightly since. So hopefully, if you can give me a thumbs up, if you can see the screen I'm sharing, that'll be good. Excellent. So my name's Chris. I'm an Agile coach, CSPSM certified. We'll go into a few more details about what the Manifesto Challenge is. Sounds really exciting, doesn't it? Something to get your juices flowing. I'll hand over to Rich to do a brief introduction himself.
Hello everyone, yeah, ditto. I'm also an Agile coach. I haven't got as many badges as Chris, but then who has got as many badges as Chris? Possibly Simon, but nobody else apart from that. And yeah, we came up with this idea a couple of weeks ago, thought it might be something quite fun. So yeah, thanks for everybody spending a little bit of their evening with us. You haven't got Bake Off to watch, so what else is there to do, right? Sit down and chat some Agile with us. So thanks for coming along for the ride.
Thanks, Rich. Right, we'll get into it. Okay, so first of all, why take the challenge at all? So we really felt that we wanted to reacquaint. We kind of toyed with some ideas around this, but we came back to reacquainting ourselves with just how relevant the Agile Manifesto is off the back of the Scrum Guide being updated, especially in a period of kind of real uncertainty and chaos. We thought it was quite a valid thing to explore. We wanted to revisit some of the, our own Agile environment and to take more of a creative approach, a bit of a fun approach to thinking about factors within those kind of contexts. There are some warning signs here. A warning. Yes, this will be emotive. You may even find it quite divisive, but please take it as it is. It's light-hearted. We're going to go quite quickly through this. There's lots of subject matter here we could go into, but we haven't got enough time. But we'd really, at the end, like you to collaborate with us.
Indeed. So 2020 was a bit of a strange one. Change came whether we liked it or not. A lot of stuff was new. I decided as a new thing to set up a minute little office in the cupboard under my stairs. Who knew that was the best place for my Wi-Fi signal? I ended up starting up a gym in my front room and spent a lot of sweaty time with a man called Joe. Who knew that was going to happen? Certainly not me. Bought a new house, got a new job, lots of new stuff happened. If you can dive to the chat window as well, just to annoy John, who can tell me, quickest person first, what happened on November the 18th in 2020? We got something new. What happened on November the 18th last year? Put down your brews, everybody, or your cold beverage of choice. Oh, I should have laid a spread on that. Well done. I think, Nimam, you got there first. Okay, everyone's coming in. So if you can go on to the next slide, Chris. So we got a new wonderful Scrum guide. That was great. So a lot of new stuff, and probably people starting some new challenges. That was great. However, not everything was new. The one thing we didn't get that was new was a new Agile Manifesto. So that's what you're all here to have. You didn't realize it by coming along to this thing, and John didn't tell you, but that's basically what you're here to do. So you need to remember the time. What are we now? 6:38. The place. Have a look around you. You're part of a wonderful new global movement. Remember this moment, because you're basically making the new Agile Manifesto. I mean, we haven't talked about the rights deals, but let's just go with it for the moment, all right? So if you've got a couple of slides, Chris is going to explain the rules for what we're going to be doing for coming up with a new Agile Manifesto called the Manifesto.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Yeah, the Manifesto, it took us about 5 minutes to come up with that. So as you can imagine. So the challenge really, we put 2 rules in place before we could kind of proceed. We felt that the Manifesto values were all encompassing, right? So, you know, whatever you come up with, it has to resonate with the, you know, a wide scenario with regard to the Agile environment and the context. It can't be too specific. The Manifesto is brutally simple, I put there. It's not masses of you know, sentences over masses of sentences. It's really simple. I think the maximum actually is 3. So we've said we have to do it no longer than 3 words either side of that over qualifier. So those are the rules in terms of the challenge.
So what we're going to do, we're each going to come up with 2 suggestions. Mine are obviously going to be better than Chris's. This is going to be a bit of a battle between us. And then after that, you get a chance to vote for whichever you think is best. And also, we're going to give you, the wonderful viewers, the chance to suggest some of your own versions as well. So have those 4 in mind, the existing ones that are in there, and have a think if you can add anything else that might be better than some of those. But obviously they won't be better because you're going to take my 2 as the best suggestions. But you'll get a chance to vote in a minute. All right. Let me give you the first one, the best one, the most amazing one. So my first entry out of the one you're going to select is impact. Next slide, wait for it. Drum roll. Go on, Chris. Impact over product. So apologies for making you slightly hungry. If you're sitting there thinking, I mean, I don't know, Stefan, if these are available in Japan, you could probably get Cheerios everywhere around the world, right? If you're feeling hungry for a bit of breakfast cereal, apologies. So to me, what I mean by this is, if you go to the next slide, please, Chris, there's a lot of builders around, right? So if you're in the UK, you know Bob the Builder, he can fix anything, right? There's a lot of people building stuff. Lots of organizations have got lots of teams of software developers. They're pushing out stuff left, right, and center. They're running code all over the place. Next slide, please, Chris. There's so many ways you can build code now. There's loads of wizards, there's templates. You can go onto sites and download code. Heck, if you're in primary schools in the UK, you're probably even going to Code Club, sitting there at lunchtime. And if my 11-year-old son can bash out a bit of code, that's all great. You even get lots of local authorities in our country who are pushing out low code, no code at all. Just click a few buttons, it spits it out, right? It's easy, right? Anybody can do it, it's all good. Next slide, please, Chris. And now we're all talking about how great is our DevOps, our CI/CD pipelines, right? Everything needs to be harder, better, faster, stronger. We can get great security. We're all in the cloud, right? We're in the cloud now. You didn't realize it. We're all in the cloud. All these things are available to us to make lots of new, wonderful, great stuff. So that all sounds great, right? I mean, it sounds great. Is there any problem with that? Well, maybe there is one problem. Next slide, please, Chris. So the problem is we're spitting out all this stuff. All these machines are busily firing out products left, right, and center. What we're not actually quite sure is whether it's got any impact whatsoever. Is it changing anyone's behavior? Is it actually delivering, as we often say in Agile, is it delivering value to anybody? Is a customer or an end user actually getting something out of this? And that, I think, is the big problem. So when it came to think about the Agile Manifesto, I thought, well, do you know what? I know I've realized the Scrum guide, and well done to Nam for coming out with that. Scrum guide came out, there was all this stuff, so product goals now, oh, that's all great, all wonderful. People are, you know, used to spitting out product, but actually what you need to do is make an impact. And in terms of making an impact, the definition I like best is the one that comes from Gojko Adic about impact mapping. So his concept where he says, people's change behavior is the best way of demonstrating impact that a product has. So on the next slide, Chris, as I'm sure some of you might have come across before. Next slide, please, Chris. What he was going to show was a map of an impact map. So Gojko Adic's concept of an impact map. So effectively, the most important thing about a product is actually making sure it's got an impact and changing the behavior of a user. And if you don't have that, you don't have anything at all. So I think that impact is much better than product necessarily. So making sure you've got an impact over actually just creating products. I certainly see this a lot in my neck of the woods when I'm working with clients, often in the public sector. We're pushing out a lot of product these days. We've got very good at that. We've even got mature DevSecOps now, all great. But are we making an impact with our products? Well, who cares? We're pushing out products. So that's the thing that I would like to focus on. So you're probably sitting there thinking, that sounds great, Rich, but I'm still not feeling impact over product. Don't think I want to add that to the Agile Manifesto. Absolutely fine. I'll carry on. My second suggestion. So my second suggestion is capabilities over roles. So when I say capability, what I'm thinking about is somebody that has some skill and some experience, and effectively that will create you a capability. And why I think that is better than having roles, it's quite a simple one. You can go to your favorite search engine of choice, and why wouldn't you go to Google? Who Bings anymore, right? Who nobody uses Bing. If you go and tap something like Agile training, and John can close his ears now because it's his entire business model, with coaching, some other stuff. If you tap it into Google Agile training, you get a lot of results. At last look, I think it was something like 243 trillion. So the problem is, since the Agile Manifesto came around, what we've done is effectively created a whole great big industry around Agile. Obviously, some people, maybe the slightly crueler ones, would say, well, it was possibly somebody's retirement plan to come up with a whole great big training and certification model around that. And that sounded great. But it felt like to me, and it feels like to me these days, that certainly it was a big plan to monetize all of the Agiles. How can we try and make some money out of this? And that sounds great. So now, Chris obviously put up his nice big CSPSM badge. I've got the same badge, don't worry. Sorry, I didn't put it up. Everyone talks about the badges these days. If you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, as I'm sure you probably do, almost the first thing you'll see, you probably won't spend 5 minutes on LinkedIn without seeing somebody with a great array of great big different badges. And the worst thing is with COVID, right? Everybody last year, what were they spending their time doing? Getting a lot more certification. So they're all spending time at home, doing some online training, doing a lot of that, and basically getting even more badges. The reason I think that is a problem is that it's not really a great goal to have, because effectively you'll run out of badges eventually, and what are the right badges to be going for? It's an absolute nightmare to know. What it's not actually doing is helping develop your Agile practice necessarily. I think you can go on all these courses, but you're not badging that in reality. What I think also you're losing is actually the best way to try and develop your skills and the best way to try and grow. And the best way of doing that, I think, is starting with one of the most important parts I think about Agile, which is the retrospective. So effectively looking within yourself and thinking, okay, it's all great having all these badges, but what I want to try and find out is, what are the skills that I think I've got? Not necessarily what the role, I need to advance my career. I'm going to be a Scrum Master. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be something else. I'm going to join the heavy lauded classical group of CSTs. Don't start thinking about a role. What I think you should be doing is thinking about the skills that you've got, or even the skills you want to develop. So the best way of doing that is by doing a retrospective with yourself and trying to work out what your greatest skills are, what are things you might want to learn. So yeah, effectively what I think the best thing to do is, so it's capabilities over roles, rather than chase a CSM or chase something else. I think what would be great is for us to sit down, Agile people, and say, right, I think that we need some facilitation in this particular area. We need some coaching in this particular area. Whatever the team is that you're part of, I think it'd be much, much better when you're thinking about Agile and thinking about the manifesto to be thinking about those softer skills rather than be thinking about the roles that we need to be talking about. So that's my two. Over to you, Chris.
Now, some of you might have thought I did that on purpose to try and spoil Richard's chances of the manifesto challenge being his. Unfortunately, my network just bombed out completely, so I profusely apologise. I do apologise for that. So I've missed half of Richard's, but at least I knew what he was going to say, right? So mine, which is going to be much better because hopefully my network won't bomb out again, is leadership over management. So here's a nice little quote from Zalesnik, who was among the founders of a school of thought that integrated leadership and organization studies with psychoanalysis. I quite like those statements there. Just going to leave you with that for a couple of seconds. So what is management in an Agile environment? So for me, when I put that question, I actually thought the question really should be, is there room for management in Agile environments? File there was a director of a large mining company with about 1,000 employees, and he developed 14 principles of management from which the 5 functions on this slide were derived. Management works really well, I think personally, in less complex environments where we have a pretty good idea of how and what we're going to build. We can refer to previous processes or people even to figure out the best place to start and learn from those past mistakes. If any of you are familiar with Stacey's model of complexity, kind of look into there and figure out where you lie on that axis. So for me, the known pieces of work require a level of planning, commanding, and control to achieve a more predictable outcome. It's not to say, however, that we don't look at these 5 functions in agile environments. For example, planning is a good one, right? We like to forecast ahead. Sprint planning is an event that we like to incorporate. We like to coordinate a few things, I'm sure. So I guess the main thing for me there that I have a problem with is the command and control structures. Ultimately, for me, there is a little connection to agile mindsets, values, and principles for this, right? So when we think about agile mindsets, complexity is high and there are many unknowns, which is why I don't necessarily think management is right in an agile environment necessarily. Okay, so moving on to leadership, there's a few quotes on there that kind of resonated with me and kind of captured the essence of true leadership. So for me, in my opinion, good agile leaders, they create an environment that encourages trust and openness. They unlock creativity, they break down organizational barriers and give purpose to people. They also see that leadership exists at all levels, right? They empower, they trust people to approach business problems in a collaborative way. They look at unblocking policies and processes, that's really important, that just don't make sense or they prevent that agility. How many nonsense processes do you know in organizations and teams that you've seen? Similarly, they start to question the hierarchical norm, right? And they challenge why a decision, for example, takes 4 people rather than just 1 person. So for me, it's creating that environment in which people can flourish. Second suggestion, simplicity over complexity. So when I was doing a bit of research, I'd never heard of this guy, right? But it's Vilfredo Pareto. I think I've pronounced that correct. He was an economist who derived this principle back in the day from an imbalance of land ownership in Italy. So he believed that 80% of consequences came from 20% of the causes. To illustrate this further and make a bit more sense, because I didn't really understand that when I first saw it. So in 1963, IBM found that about 80% of its computers' time was spent executing just 20% of the instructions. Any guesses for what they thought was the solution there? Let's see what I got in chat. More computers. No, Rich, actually. Okay, I'll let you off. So they chose to rework the operating system to make the 20% that was being used faster and easier to use, and overall improving computer performance. So why, oh why, do I see so many teams spend so much time early on in development, at least, loading up features and effort, when in reality, a small proportion of them are actually going to be used to their fullest and provide value to the customer? So I think we should start small with the things that are of most value and have a focus on minimizing waste. Just another continuation of that. How many times has anyone seen an MVP developed over a series of months with a huge budget and sign off and project boards just for an MVP? An MVP, of course, is a product with just enough features that's useful and it successfully completes its main task. That's all we're looking for in an MVP. We can also look to the 10th Agile Principle for a bit of inspiration here too. Anyone want to guess what that is? More planning, Meg? Surely not.
It's the simplicity one, isn't it, Chris? Maximizing the work not done.
Work not done, yeah.
If we're in a physical location, I would have given you a Mars bar for that one. So well done, Simon. So I personally think that simplicity over complexity is fundamental to agile mindsets. It allows us to respond to change with true agility baked in for me. Just take a look at how a flatter, more simplified Hierarchy allows us to collaborate and interact with individuals in a much easier way. Ultimately, I believe that products and services are more likely to be valued to our customers when we take this consideration into our minds. So we've done our work. We've done it really quick. We've gone through leadership and management theory in literally 2 minutes.
Smashed it.
Smashed it. Over to you. We want to challenge you, the manifesto challenge, right? So what would your pitch be? Rich, over to you to do this bit.
Yes, essentially what you can do is if you go over to Poll EV, I'll stick it in the chat as well. You can then go and stick your own versions in. I mean, why would you? Just need to retype mine, right? They're the two best ones. If you can come up with something, or possibly yours, you might want to go with that. Get in there and pop your own bits and pieces in. And if you want to, you can vote on other people's as well. So you can upvote and downvote them depending on what you think. So yes, we're going to give you 5 minutes to do this, what we do. So at the moment, I think we're going to go on for about another 10 minutes because we started a little bit late. If that's all right with you, John, we'll go on to about 5 past. So we'll do this for about 5 minutes and then we'll come back. And if any of you feel confident about just explaining a bit about why you've popped your version in, that'd be great. And then we'll close and move on to Stefan's talk. Cool. If you go on to the next slide, Chris, you can start the timer. I mean, if you want to turn the sound down of this, then please do. If you want to dance around, please do. If you want to be the crazy dinosaur, you be the crazy dinosaur. Just crack on.
Please have fun with this. We're going to give prizes to the best dancer, right, Rich?
Yeah, definitely. Too right.
There you go. 5 minutes, guys.
Right, 5 seconds to go.
Done.
Cool. All done. All right. Whew. So thanks everybody for tapping some stuff into there. Some really, really interesting suggestions coming in there. Obviously, none as good as Chris's and myself, but yeah, really interesting stuff to see, stuff coming in there. Let me just have a quick flick through what we've got. So simplicity over complexity, leadership over management look like they're coming out really high. What I quite liked, I quite like to treat people as equals over establish a hierarchy. That was a really nice one for me. Would anyone like to own up to creating that one? Does anyone want to give a little bit of context about that one? Where that came from, why that was there?
That was ours, Richard.
Oh.
Next.
That's rude.
I think, delete. No, that's lovely. Go on, Lynn. Why did you put that one in there?
What did we say? I can't remember what it was.
Oh, the hierarchy one. Well, it's even
Treat
though
people as
Agile is all about self-organizing teams, in practice, people seem to like structure and they like hierarchy and they like to put people in leadership and manager roles. And we often see people as a self-appointed team lead. So it'd be nice if people treated each other as equals, not as part of a hierarchy, rather than try to establish hierarchies where they're not needed.
It's also I think people put role titles and job titles over people's qualifications and skills, and it was about trusting people that they have the right skills to do the job, by trusting them through enabling them to do it, rather than getting stuck on these job titles and roles.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've just gone through a process where I've just gone through my own job title, and actually I didn't have one for the first 6 months. I mean, it didn't matter. But people got really upset about the fact that, well, I'm a tech lead. I'm more senior than them. I have to be a tech lead as right. Let's go back to the manifesto. Should we have a look at what Scrum says about team roles? Like, you're either in the development team or you're not. It doesn't matter what, So it is really interesting, exactly, about people trying to establish a hierarchy when there doesn't need to be one. No, that's interesting. So thanks for that one. What else have we got there? Chris, do you want to pick one out? Has anything grabbed your fancy?
I did like purpose over tasks. I like that one. I kind of like collaboration over ice. Do you know what? I like all of them, to be fair. I know that's really, really half, I shouldn't say that, but to be fair, I do. I like the face-to-face conversations over online messages. That's good, as long as it's virtually held, of course. Build, measure, learn over build. I think the point of this, I guess, is what we were trying to get at, Rich, here for everyone, is to generate these kind of ideas, because it really does make you think about these things.
So I realised we're running out of time, but yeah, there were some really great suggestions there. Thanks for taking some time to pop some bits and pieces in. Do you want to go on to the next slide, Chris? And
yeah, thank you everyone, by the way. So, yeah, what did we actually learn then? Given everything we've said and our technical prowess to get volume working and bombing out of networks, what did we learn? We found it incredibly difficult in the end to argue with the Agile Manifesto as is, right? I know that's a really lame way of ending it, but we really did. Early on, we also realized that a lot of the suggestions we were making are covered by the 12 principles. So we also went back to the principles and kind of checked ourselves there, to be honest. Ultimately, though, hopefully what we've proved here is we felt this exercise not only makes you really think about the values and the mindset piece, but it creates great discussion amongst your teams. And even for people who aren't accustomed to Agile context, it's a really good basis to form those conversations with people. So the challenge back to you is we really want to see if this generates any more interest across, various social media platforms. We already started the conversation with mixed results, I must say. Some people just didn't get it, but that's fine.
It's embryonic.
It's embryonic. We'd love for you here to leave and start using this hashtag this evening, next few days, just to see what it generates, see how many people we can annoy, but also to generate some ideas amongst our community. So yeah, I guess for myself, thank you very much for listening to us. Sorry about the glitch, I do apologize. You can reach me on those details. Rich, over to you for a final goodbye.
Yeah. Again, thanks very much for bearing with us while we coach our way through that. It's at least the first sprint. We'll be fine by the time we get to the next product demo. We'll be absolutely fine.
Great, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Chris and Rich. Great to return to the Agile Manifesto every now and again and look a bit deeper at it. I noticed you didn't ask who did purpose and over tasks, which isn't fair. It's me.
Who did purpose? Well, we knew that. That's why we didn't ask you. And
Yeah.
it got a high vote as well. So good job.
My way of bragging. Thank you very much. There have been no questions. Obviously, people were too engaged to do, but we have 10 minutes now. If there are any questions for Chris and Rich, I'm going to start timer. Questions or comments, please. Feel free to put them in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud. I'll ask, or ask it yourself.
I think what we realised is that certainly doing this activity, it's been like the kind of, some of you might have used the kind of pocket principles game before, when you try and rewrite some of the 12 principles. When you think about the values, actually, the advantage is that they're not specific. That's the point that Chris was trying to make, that they are more general and more vague. However, a lot of stuff has changed at that point. So maybe there are things that we need to try and establish. Humans don't change as much as you think. And I think things like, the point we were just talking about, people needing a hierarchy or feeling like they need a hierarchy. I think it's probably one of those things that never changes. But certainly leadership has changed. The conversation about leadership management have changed over that bit of time. Building to learn rather than building to earn, which is one of the classic Jeff Patton phrases. So it's really interesting to see that coming out in that build, measure, learn. But now I'd be interested to find out what people think, whether it needs revising or not.
The only thing I think we should revise is the term software in there. I think Agile's got so much more widespread now in terms of the Agile mindset and context. But I don't think it needs to be just applied to software. And I know they have reviewed that and they came back to it and they stuck with software because of the intention and the intent around what it was built for. But I think the term software is very technically focused towards developing particularly software products. And I think Agile is so much more widespread now that I think it's making it feel a bit out of date, and that it can't be applied to things such as organizational agility or non-solution, technically solution delivered teams. And actually, I think it can. Everything else in there stands true.
Do you know what, interestingly, Lynn, that's exactly where we started. We kind of looked at, actually, I know it was, 20 years ago, a bunch of people were kind of on the software development side. But actually, it's come along leaps and bounds, whether we like it or not. Yeah. And I think we need to think in terms of a bit wider than just software. So I absolutely agree with you on that.
And it's not really just about software anymore, is it? It's about, theory X and theory Y and all of those sorts of concepts. And I think, if you look at its roots, it's come from all of these areas. And I think, the Agile word has enabled it to push that theory X and theory Y or theory X into theory Y. And I think that's been really much needed within, our societies, and that sort of management theory moved forward. And it's nice that Agile can do that. But while it's still got software in the manifesto, it constrains it somewhat, I think.
What I find strange is that because, as you said, if you trace all those bits back to extreme programming, other bits and pieces, pair programming, all these kind of strange software concepts, you would have thought that would have naturally worked in a world where you can now go to an HR conference and hear people talk about agile HR practices. But I do love the fact that you can take something like pair programming, and Chris and I effectively almost kind of pair presented, not just this, but in terms of us creating this presentation in the first place. So I love the fact that you can take these, really strange, hoary technical software concepts and just apply them to everything else, which I don't think there's much else that you can take from software and then apply it to HR or a management team or an operational team or anything like that. So no, that's what I love about it, that flexibility.
Fantastic. I've got a question for you, Chris and Rich. How often do you find yourselves referring back to the manifesto when coaching teams?
I'll take
Please do, Chris, yeah.
Add the second half to it.
Mm-hmm.
And how often do you find the correct understanding?
So if I do the first bit there, Rich, it's quick. I think I was just typing it actually. So I spend more time as a coach now referring to values, principles, and mindset than I do frameworks and methodologies. So if I look back 2 years ago when I was first starting coaching seriously, when you cringe a little bit when you look back at something, oh no, I didn't say that, did I? I didn't just keep bleating on about Scrum, did I? Of course that stuff's important, right? That really is important. But what does unlock that non-software area at least is talking about the principles and the manifesto, values, mindset, Scrum values as well. They're great ones to refer to. So I don't correct the understanding of it. I think a lot of it is up for interpretation sometimes, but I think if you realize the underpinnings of the principles underpinning those values, it all makes sense. So yeah, long way of saying I refer to them all the time. Sorry, Rich, over to you.
No, that's fine. No, great question. Thank you. I think I probably refer to correcting them most of the time. So back in the real world, back in pre-PC, pre-COVID, most of the working areas that I was in, I would try and make sure that they had those up on the wall. They had the values and the principles printed up, because often I just found it really useful to say, right, can we just all look at that and see what that says? No, next to the fire exit. No, next to the working agreement, the bit on the end, the dusty bit with the coffee cup marks on. Because often people didn't remember it, or they think they half remembered it. I guess it's like, a film that you watched a long time ago, or an album that you listened to a long time ago. Can you really remember what the intro is on track one? Maybe not. I do find that people don't remember them. So I talked about that pocket principles game, which is where you get people to rewrite them, which works quite nicely in 1 or 2 words. I often have that little A5 bit printed out. It's often stuck somewhere inside my folder just so I can refer to it and bring it out and go there. So yeah, more often, unfortunately, than I would like it. But that's fine. I think working as an Agile coach, one of the things I'd say is that you're only as good as explaining those values and principles. They're very much the kind of the core of anything. So if any of you have a faith or a following or a practice or a hobby, whatever it is that you like doing, unless you can explain what those core concepts are and have those to hand, I don't think you're a very good, whatever it is you are, beekeeper or yoga teacher. So I think you have to have those up on the wall. I think you have to refer those all the time. I think that's just natural. I wouldn't expect them to live and breathe it all of the time, but it's quite nice. I often use it as when I'm working with teams or individuals, as often a way of kind of maybe de-escalating a situation, because it's just a nice unemotive thing that you can just point to and say, right, let's just look at that. What does everyone think that means? What does that mean to you? Why did you put that other word in there instead? So it's sometimes quite nice to use that as a bit. So that's why I also like them on the wall. So yeah, more often than I'd like is the short answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've got time for one more question, if there is. We've got a few minutes left.
If there isn't, it's just again, just to kind of say, if you want to create this into your social media platforms and the groups and teams you're associated with, I'd really love to see that Manifesto Challenge hashtag. I'm not forcing you, but I think it'd be interesting to see what people make of it. So please have fun with it. Remember the rules, and I hope to see some out on the Twitter sphere somewhere.
Fantastic. Thank you very much again, Rich and Chris, for an interesting re-exploration of the Agile Manifesto. Next up, we have Stefan. So Stefan is going to be talking about teaming, and I'll hand straight over to him so we can crack on. Stefan?
Yeah, thanks a lot. How's my voice? Can you see my slides? Everything okay?
It's all good, thanks.
Okay, great. So the title of my presentation is Uber Reteaming. My name is Stefan Aust, and I'm especially thanks to my friends at Agile Center UK for hosting the meetup. A short disclaimer. So the presentation I have here is for information only, and this is my own view, but it's fully incomplete and still under development. And please do your own research. About me, I'm a professional Scrum Master, CSP SM, a professional product owner, CSP PO, a professional developer, CSP. And although I have all these certifications, I'm only at the beginning of my Agile journey, I believe. Let me start from the viewpoint of a Scrum Master for this presentation. And I'm viewing reteaming as a disruptive event for the Scrum Master when it becomes too much frequent in shorter time periods. And there's also no knowledge about why the decision-making of reteaming has occurred. So we have no information what's happened. So we, as Scrum Masters, are left alone with the decision. Why teams change? We have growth. Teams are growing in numbers of members. Maybe we have starting size from 10 members, suddenly we're going up to 20, 30 members, and then somebody has to take a decision to cut the teams into half or sub-teams. We have a new work or new focus. We would like to knowledge share. We would like to get new guys in our team. They can share their expertise with our team, and we have not the knowledge what we need. And we have maybe a kind of stagnation and learning, where some of our team members would like to go out, leaving our team and joining other teams because maybe they started to work on new topics, new technologies, and they're eager to learn about and to come back and giving us new ideas. What are the challenges for reteaming? So we got newbies, new staff members, and most likely they are less qualified and not well equipped to deliver to our project. No members with preferred skills or desired experience level are available at this moment. So we are suffering good educational staff. And most likely this is due to a tight labor market. We saw this in the .com bubble. And this can also come from demographics. We have quite recently a lot of changes in gender and age and nationality. And there's also some idea about dynamic reteaming. This has been introduced by the author in one. This is Heidi Helfand. And she is describing dynamic reteaming as a most likely positive challenge, where people like to leave the team, learning something new and come back. And this is somehow also supported from the corporation or the rest of the groups. Again, this is a positive challenge. Let me introduce the phases of group development. And most of us are fully aware of Tuckman with forming, storming, and norming, all these 5 stages. And this can be also broke down can be broken down into 4 phases, let's say. You have phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have phase 1 where the newbie comes in and joining the team, and then you try to build up trust. And this is maybe a timing between 3 to 6 months, highly dependable on your environment. Maybe you're working in a startup or you're working in a big corporation. In a big corporation, you don't have so much time to spend with new members because maybe you have scheduled meetings every week or every month. Whereas in a startup, you can meet more often. You're sitting face to face, most likely. Then you have phase number 3. You're going into a productive phase, self-organized, most likely. And then phase 4, yeah, the project goes at the end and people are asking you what's next. It's getting boring. And this is somehow the disruption phase and you're preparing for a handover. So in phase number 3, this is I would call it the sweet spot for the Scrum Master. He can show his abilities to make the team more self-organized. The team should contribute coding, output, and most likely everybody has fun and is eager to learn and eager to contribute, and there are less conflicts. So this is really what the Scrum Master like to see. And surely after that, maybe in phase 4, he can start to think about disruption and preparing a nice handover for what will come. So what is Reteaming or Reteaming? So now we have new team members joining, we have current members leaving or being reassigned to other projects during important phases of the group development in shorter time periods. Let's say within 1 week we have new situations. 1 week to 6 months, everything can happen. And this goes into hectic transfers, chaotic handovers, and is also somehow disrupting the work of the Scrum Master. And we feel somehow that something is not right. So how does it look like when the group development is disrupted for the so-called Reteaming? Now we have the same situation with the 4 phases, but we already started to see problems in phase number 4. So we will never ever reach actually phase number 4. It's never applicable anymore because our project will never mature. We will never have the situation that we have to prepare a nice handover. What we more likely have is we have no time left for preparing handovers because we have so many disruptions throughout phase 1, 2, and 3. For instance, in phase 3, we have now the productive phase, and this becomes now the sweet spot for the company. We have maybe disruption of reteaming. People are getting removed because they're getting much more efficient and much more likely to go into other projects. We have disruptions in phase number 2, in the establishing phase, because maybe project priorities has changed immediately and you go for work and suddenly team members have been reassigned to different topics. Or you're in phase number 1 where the newbie just arrived. You just have been informed new members will join and you're happy maybe to meet them. And next week you have a schedule to meet them again, but they're no longer available. This can happen maybe due to relocation, or you have not been aware about their plans, their life plans, which are totally out of sync with the company plans or your plans. So what are the moving targets if you look on Reteaming? So we can say it's a trend, and we can also ask, is it really a trend? Are these implications of digitalization? Is this a kind of aggressive time plan by the management? For instance, they're calling for speed. Is it shifting project priorities or don't tone down efficient work? And for sure, it's also reteaming effective team members for other short-lived projects. And there's some pain for the Scrum Master. And I have 3 levels: company level, team level, and member level. So on the company level, we have the situation, the Scrum Master is disconnected from the high-level management. And the Scrum Master does not know any reasons for the reteaming which is happening. So he has to speculate, or she has to speculate. And this leads into headaches, dizziness. You're making asking you wonder why this reteaming has happened. Again, because maybe you had just a reteaming happen last month. And then you may be also challenged by members who are joining your team, which are a little bit difficult to work with, or the corporation or your group has a lot of rotations. People has to learn from your leadership and maybe has to be removed and to join other teams. And this leads to pain on the team level, because now the question is about the handovers. They are most likely not prepared. There's for no time. And the question is, where's the information? Who is the owner? Who has the keys? Where's the hardware? Where's the software? And then on member level, you have a so-called play of new group members. Maybe they may say to you, yes, I understood what you said to me. And next week, maybe he will say, oh, sorry, I did not understand what you told me. So you have to start again. You have a cold start of personal relationships, and there's no trust established. So we have an author, we have literature already also facing or talking about this issue, that you will be triggered. And Heidi Helfand in her book, and also in the information she is sharing with us, there's a moment that people are getting triggered. The Scrum Master is sitting beside the organization in the Scrum team and feels somehow responsible. So the Scrum Master has to deal with all this anger and the stress. It leads to difficulty to contribute to the business because he's disrupted in his work. And somehow the Scrum Master finds himself to clean up the mess. And finally, what we also have to say is, somehow you have to handle the trigger. So what we can say about the consequences about such a kind of scenario. So normally our understanding is that we believe that stable membership is very helpful for the work. We assume that stable membership should be our target, our aim. But we have to think that teams with stable membership would perform better, because we do not have this anymore. We have team disruptions which are happening quite frequently, and we have to get good at it. We have to handle it. Bounded and stable membership is less and less the norm, and teams become more dynamic and diverse. And more people are now working on multiple teams, vary in duration, shifting of the membership, and everything has happened in much more shorter time periods. Let me introduce some remedies we can find. And I would like to make the idea that there's something like processes versus mindset. We all are most likely aware about the processes from Agile and Scrum, but there's also some component which is called mindset. I have 3 phases here, phase 1, 2, and 3, as from the former models. And we do not need to look on phase number 4, because this will be out of question to achieve anyway. So in phase number 1, which I called openness, we start with respect against the newcomers. Whether it's the newcomers or also for new groups of joining members for the new project. So what we can start is to give people respect, humility, and contemplation, and listening to people. And we say that everyone is right, but only partially. And we try to be curious, have our curiosity play, so that we can act more directly with the people, with the person who is joining. So this gives us some kind of stand that we do not lose so much if we would start, for instance, instead with Scrum or Agile practices. What we do here right now is only to work with our mindset. We do not lose anything when suddenly this person will leave. We just showed our respect. We have been kind. We have been curious about this new member. And when this new member has to leave after 1 week or after 1 month, we do not lose anything. But if we would start, for instance, asking this new member in the first week, please give me a unit testing for next week, we lose a lot, because maybe he may not appear next week, and we are sitting there, gave him some homework, and nothing has happened. And then we will, yeah, most likely be somehow dissatisfied and feel some stress about this. So keep phase one simple, show respect, and be curious. So this is also called psychological safety. So you're building up the safety net in the first place. And also in phase two, you're continuously building up the safety net, showing your patience, observing the relationships in this taming phase. You see how the new member maybe comes in alignment with the rest of the group. How is the team play? Is the new person be accepted? Are there any problems? And you can also continuously socialize with the new people. For instance, go for lunch and over communicate. Say 7 times so that people really get it, what you want to have from them. Still, we providing a safety net, and we are doing this from the motivation that we providing trust, where this new member can open himself or herself and can identify us not as an enemy or as the big boss. Instead, we are somehow on the same page, and this hopefully will help us for the next phase for the teamwork. So in phase two, you can try to start to introduce maybe agile software principles, pair programming, code reviews, but still this is a very sensitive topic. People can still leave the project, or they may say that they are not aware of these techniques and may need more time. And then hopefully you can reach into phase three, where you really can put your effort in applying agile practices, applying coding standards, extreme programming, handover material can be prepared. You can use wikis, preparing slides, movies. You can capturing data so that you have some data analysis maybe for your PO. You can start to reduce debt. You can clean up your code, preparing for next handover. You can discuss root cause. But again, you maybe identify that might be some other changes or challenges may happen. Maybe some members have to leave. So, but maybe you can start to clean up your code that the next or that the handover becomes more optimized. And hopefully you have some time as a Scrum Master to search for better ways. Maybe for phase one or phase two, there's still something to optimize for you. And finally, really, you can get ready for so-called dynamic reteaming when really a handover occurs and your project is finished. So on the right side, you have some picture including all these extreme programming practices. And the author in the 3, she was applying all these agile practices, and her claim was, if you're using all these extreme programming practices, yes, you can improve the output 300% compared to a good programming team. So you can use newbies or new members, which are not highly skilled. By applying these agile practices, you can lead the group in very efficient output. But again, the author, or we have to make clear that this only happened in a so-called production phase. This is not in the beginning of the grouping or of the teaming phase. And on the next slide, I would like to show you some idea what else you can do as a Scrum Master. And this is, you have to be somehow one step ahead. So the Scrum Master is a leadership role, and leadership is a state of mind. We have here some author, this is Susie. I have heard here on the original Scrum Master meeting here. And she was talking about that you should be one step ahead. You have to face challenges, and you should somehow be prepared for these challenges. And most likely, you will start with be humble. There's a lot of unknowns about personal skills. If you meet new team members, there are some tool impediments and market challenges, and they may change, and they may challenge you throughout the project, so that you have to ask yourself what could happen next. So you have to be curious what will happen next, so that you can be able to predict culture changes, tool changes, and market changes. and you have maybe access and you have your group to observe so that you can get some helpful insights about development, which gives you more clarity what kind of challenges may occur. And one message is also, do not push your team, but also do not be behind. So I'm finishing on my presentation. So the takeaways are: reteaming is common. You have to get familiar with it, and you will get triggered, and you should respond mindfully and be one step ahead. I have here the references to the work which I'm referring to, Heidi Helfand, Dynamic Reteaming. It's a book she provided, compiled, and a lot of things, what she is reporting about her work, how dynamic reteaming occurs and what are the implications. And she has also a good website where you can also find some helpful videos. And there's some other work from Schunderwort, which I found very interesting. This is about embedded agile project by numbers with newbies, where she is referring to the situation that you can apply agile or agility to new members, and you can see a benefit of that. But this is highly based on processes. So if you want to talk more about the mindset, then we can go to the work from Susie Sochova. She has written a book, this great Scrum Master, and she's more on the side for be mindful and have your ideas ready then when you meet new members, and be curious about new members. And finally, there's also a nice talk from Amy, how to turn a group of strangers into a team. This is again based or highly based on the idea that that at the beginning, you should provide a safety net, the psychological safety, so that people can be open-minded and be able to share and to find trust. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. People know me well enough very often to know if I see psychological safety in a presentation, you've kind of won me over. Thank you for the references as well. There's a book in there that I've not read, so I'm going to go pick up Dynamic Reteaming and do a bit of learning myself. Thank you. We have time for questions. I've kept an eye on the chat, but I haven't seen any questions, so I'm hoping you're holding them for now. Feel free to pop them in chat or ask them out loud yourselves. Okay, if there are no questions. Oh, there we are. One popping in from Rich. Do you think you have to reteam to be high performing? Stefan, what do you think?
Yeah, it can be the case, especially in the, actually at any moment, if you maybe encounter some blocking points where members may find themselves in a situation that they cannot provide a solution, and people may ask if there's anybody else in the group or in a company and different teams, and they should join the team. Maybe you have an expert in C or C++ programming, and you have not this specific person, then you can ask other team members to join your project. This is a way of reteaming and to make your group more efficient.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, this is a common practice. So this is how most likely done in most teams.
Great. Thank you very much, Stefan. So another question from Sam. When teams reteam every 3 months, how can you ever get past the newbie stage?
Yeah, this is the point I try to make clear. So there might be the situation where either projects or people will never surpass the next or come across the next phase. Maybe your project will be in phase 3, it's highly matured, but you will get maybe newbies, phase 1, let's say. You have to get somehow, yeah, that you invite them for your project. You are respectful, but actually they're not really helpful and have not the skills you need. So you have to maybe to keep them on the side that you yeah, respect them, that they are willing to join your team, but you cannot expect so much. And maybe most likely they will drop out by themselves or from the forced by the corporation.
Thank you. Another question from Rich. How long should you keep a team together?
Yeah, for the Scrum Master, I think it was the sweet spot again would be maybe 1 year, 2 years. This is maybe the dream, I understand, even maybe 3 years. But because the development of the technology is so, yeah, so has such kind of a speed that you will encounter new technologies and maybe, yeah, group members will opt out by themselves and ask you to leave and to join other projects where maybe more advanced technology is used. So I guess maybe, yeah, the normal duration would be about 2 years. I would be happy with 1 or 2 years, but even this is sometimes not possible anymore.
Okay, thank you. Question from Ugne. Sorry, that's my eyes. How do you find the sweet spot between slowing down Uber reteaming without then establishing that reteaming should not happen at all? So a question of balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the final reteaming will, you cannot avoid this because your project maybe has anyway a phase, a running phase maybe for 36 months, and then you will have the situation from the timeline that the project will be finished. And during this phase, anything can happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, Steve, I skipped over your comment. So Steve said, I haven't found frequent reteaming happening. As a coach, I push back with product owners. What's your experience of that, Stefan?
Yeah, it's good to hear that other Scrum Masters, let's say, have a much more stable situation, much more reliable situation. I think it's very beneficial to lay back and see how the team can grow. I think, again, this is maybe the hope and the dream of most Scrum Masters because they're under pressure, they're under stress. They would like to go to the production phase quite soon and to show their abilities, that the team can shine and members are happy. And the Scrum Master can be proud of his work. So I would applaud this when this will happen, and still the case. But yeah, most likely, also what I found in the literature, at least anyway, some team members do not agree on this status quo. They would like to drop out. They're seeking for other teams. They're seeking for new information. You have to nourish them. Otherwise, they get tired, they get bored. This you cannot avoid. Maybe you like to have a very stable team, but again, maybe the plans and divisions from other team members are maybe not in sync with you.
Yes, Stefan, you mentioned in passing in 36 months things are going to change. Do you often work on projects that are 36 months long?
No, for me, this was only, let's say, the assumption. This is maybe the maximum amount. Maybe you have even shorter periods or longer periods. It's just giving you some house number, just to make sure that if you talk about the Tuckman model, it goes a very long phase, I believe. It goes at least maybe 2 years or 3 years, but maybe in other projects can go longer.
Yeah, but you actually split them up for the increments. I mean, how often do these long projects actually deliver and implement something?
yeah, again, going back to the literature, so there are shorter projects, longer projects, so this highly depends on the workload. So I think we don't need to stick on a very hard number here. So the point is that just in shorter time periods, you encounter disruptions already, and how to deal with that as a Scrum Master.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Help if I wasn't on mute. Thank you for the question, Steve. Much appreciated. And we have time for another question or two, if there are any. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Stefan, for the talk. Thank you to Chris and Rich for their talk on the Agile Manifesto. And I need to find out what that video was because I didn't actually hear it. So,
well, the thing is, we assumed incorrectly that you'd hear the audio, and that's why we asked people to dance. So it could have sounded really weird that we wanted you to dance to nothing.
Dance to
but
the music in your head. Yeah.
we will send you that. It basically spiced it up a little bit, but yeah, alas, you'll have to find out next time.
that's all right. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody for coming along, asking your questions, and being here to see our first meetup. The recording, we'll take it off the cloud. As I said at the start, George will do his magic with it, okay, and we'll get it up on YouTube as soon as we can. I'm not going to promise a date because I ain't doing the work and I have no idea what's involved.
You just facilitate, John. Come on.
Yeah.
That's leadership over management, surely.
Let's not go there because I believe the winner was purpose over tasks. So thank you very much. I'm hoping to have another meetup scheduled soon for the end of February. Okay, I can't give you any more details than that at the moment because admin is not my sweet spot, should we say. But thank you very much. Have a lovely evening. And I hope to see you again sometime soon.